Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're picking up the intense story of Toan and Diem. After a long time of running from danger, facing constant challenges, the two criminals who had wronged them are finally getting what they deserve. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a surprise phone call from the police changed everything. But have the criminals been caught? Or are they still hiding somewhere? The police have surrounded them, and the truth is slowly unfolding. You won't be able to predict what happens next. Stay tuned to find out how it all ends, and whether Toan and Diem can finally find peace after everything they've been through. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to keep up with our next videos packed with surprises and suspense. The abandoned house stood deep in the dense forest, a place where no light could penetrate, leaving nothing but an overwhelming darkness. Two criminals, exhausted and anxious, huddled in a corner of the decaying house. The musty smell of rotting wood and damp earth made the air even harder to breathe. They had nowhere else to go, so they held their breath, listening for the smallest sound from outside, hoping no one would find them. Criminal number one, panting, face filled with fear. What do we do now? The cops won't give up. Criminal number two, clenching his teeth, eyes full of worry. Quiet. Don't make a sound. As long as we stay still, no one will find us here. They sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the old wooden door, as if just one noise would end everything. But deep down, both knew the price of running away wasn't easy to pay. They couldn't stay here forever. In just a little while, the police cars would arrive, their flashing lights tearing through the quiet night. One wrong step, and everything would come crashing down. The sounds outside grew clearer, the rustling of leaves getting louder. Could they stay silent much longer? Or had the police gotten too close? This silence was like a ticking time bomb, just waiting for the right moment to explode. Inside the abandoned house, the air was suffocatingly still. The two criminals sat frozen, their eyes filled with panic, but too afraid to speak. Their trembling hands gripped their weapons tightly, bracing for the worst. But they didn't know that just a few more steps, and the police cars would rush in, ending all their hopes of escaping. Criminal number one, breathing heavily, glancing out the window. Do you hear that? They're definitely coming. Criminal number two, pale sweat covering his arms. No, it can't be. We still have time. In that tense moment outside the abandoned house, a silent police force surrounded them. Leading the way was the police chief, the man who had been chasing these criminals for a long time. The headlights from the police cars lit up the dark surroundings, casting reflections on the cracked walls of the house. Police chief staring at the house, his voice calm yet firm. We've been watching them for too long. We can't let them get away again. Get ready to move in. The other officers stood quietly, weapons in hand, their eyes focused, preparing to strike. The tension in the air was like a taut wire waiting for the signal. Inside the house, the criminals had no idea that their escape route had been completely blocked. The police chief gave the signal, and in an instant, the team rushed into the abandoned house, the net closing in on them. The police chief gave a signal to his lieutenant, his eyes filled with determination. In an instant, the police team stormed into the abandoned house like ghosts moving without a sound. The hurried footsteps echoed in the dark night, blending with the howling wind through the cracks in the old wooden door. like the sound of a bell signaling the end for the criminals hiding inside. Police Chief whispering voice cold. They won't get away this time. They've done too many terrible things. With careful preparation, each officer was ready to strike. They split into smaller groups, moving like wolves in the night. The door to the abandoned house burst open, and the headlights from the police cars shone straight into the darkness inside, exposing every hiding spot. Inside, the two criminals jumped in shock at the noise. They spun around in panic, not knowing where to run. Just one more second, and all their hopes would vanish. Criminal number one screaming, hands trembling, "No, this can't be happening." But it was too late. The police had surrounded every exit. An officer suddenly burst in, grabbing hold of the second criminal's arm. At the same time, the police chief entered his gaze, burning with fury, showing no mercy. Police chief sternly, "It's time to pay for everything you've done." The two criminals were handcuffed with no escape left. Fear filled their hearts as they realized everything was over. The lights from the police car's headlights illuminated the night, marking the end of their tense escape. Diem and Toan sat quietly in the house, the stillness of the room almost strange. The warm yellow light from the desk lamp reflected off their faces, the beams casting shadows in the corners, adding to the calm atmosphere. Both were lost in their thoughts, the worries about everything that had just happened still lingering in their minds. Suddenly, Toan's phone vibrated, breaking the silence in the room. He glanced at the screen and saw the police chief's number. For the first time, a wave of anxiety rose within him. Toan looked over at Diem, who also sensed the tension in the air. He answered the call, and the police chief's voice came through the line, no longer carrying the seriousness it had in the past. "Toan, Diem, you're safe now. The two criminals have been caught." In that moment, both Toan and Diem were taken by surprise, a complex wave of emotions sweeping through their minds. Diem looked up at Toan, her eyes wide in disbelief, as if she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. "They were caught?" Toan asked again, almost to confirm. The police chief reassured him, his voice light and relieved. "Yes, they were caught while they were hiding. You can rest easy now." For a moment, everything seemed to calm down. Diem let out a soft sigh of relief, while Toan looked out the window, the night still quiet. But a part of him still felt an indescribable unease, as if the worry had never really gone away. When the police car stopped in front of the station, the two criminals were dragged out of the car, their heavy footsteps showing no trace of the arrogance they once had. The dim lights from the station illuminated their faces, but the light wasn't enough to erase the confusion and fear. Each step they took seemed to bring them closer to an unavoidable fate. Inside the station, the air was cold and heavy. The interrogation room door was shut with a firm thud, the sound echoing like a finality to their escape. Everything around them became silent, with only the heavy breathing of the two criminals blending into the stillness. The fluorescent lights lit up the room, casting sharp reflections on their faces filled with anxiety, as if every beam of light was exposing the secrets they had desperately tried to hide. A team of officers stood silently outside the room, not a word spoken. The police chief stood alone, his gaze resolute, unmoved by the criminals' resistance. Everything had been carefully planned, and there was no room left for evasion or excuses. The two criminals sat quietly, their hands cuffed tightly to the chair, their eyes fixed on the floor, not daring to meet the stern gaze of the officers. The atmosphere in the room felt suffocating, every moment filled with tension. They knew that now there was nowhere left to run. The truth would soon come out, and their lives would never be the same again. The room was cold, the silence almost suffocating, as the two criminals sat there handcuffed and staring at the floor. The fluorescent lights above them buzzed faintly, casting an eerie glow over the scene. It was as if time had slowed down each passing second, stretching into eternity. The door to the interrogation room opened, and two officers entered their presence, filling the space with authority. The police chief followed them in his footsteps, deliberate and steady, each one echoing off the walls. He didn't speak immediately, instead, choosing to stand by the door, watching the criminals. His piercing gaze studying them as if waiting for them to crack under the weight of the tension in the room. Criminal number one looked up, his eyes filled with anxiety, but he quickly lowered them again. The fear was evident in the way his body trembled slightly, even though he tried to hide it. He had always been the more vocal one, the one who believed they could outrun the law. But now, in the face of his inevitable capture, he seemed smaller, more fragile. Criminal number two, on the other hand, remained silent, his jaw clenched tightly as if determined to keep his composure. His hands were still cuffed to the chair, but his fists were balled-up knuckles turning white. His gaze never met the officer's eyes either, as though he was afraid that looking directly at them might break him. The chief finally spoke, his voice low and measured, but there was an edge to it that made the air feel even heavier. "I know you're both scared," he said calmly, his eyes never leaving them. "But that's not going to save you. You've run for so long thinking you could escape the consequences. But you're here now, and there's no running away from the truth." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. The silence stretched on, only broken by the faint sound of the air conditioning. "You've done terrible things," the chief continued. "And now it's time to face the consequences. The law is not a game. It's not something you can bend to your will. You're here because of your actions, and it's time to own up to them." Criminal number one finally spoke, his voice shaky, betraying the fear he had been trying to hide. We didn't mean to hurt anyone," he said, his words coming out in a rush. "We were just trying to survive. It was just the heat of the moment. We never planned any of this." The chief's expression didn't change. He stepped forward, his gaze sharp. "Survival, is that what you call it? You chose to hurt others. You chose to break the law. There's no excuse for what you've done." Criminal number two's face tightened, but he remained silent, his gaze focused on the floor. He knew there was nothing he could say to change the situation. He had been part of the plan, part of the crime, and now he had to face the consequences, no matter how hard it was to accept. "You had your chances," the chief said, his voice now colder. "You chose this path, and now it's time for you to deal with what you've done. You're not walking out of here. Not this time." The door to the room opened again, and a different officer entered carrying a file. He placed it on the table in front of the criminals, the weight of it heavy in the air. It was the evidence they had collected, everything that had been building up for months. The pieces of their crimes, meticulously documented, now laid bare for them to see. The officer flipped through the file, pulling out photographs, papers, and statements that outlined the extent of the crimes the two had committed. It was undeniable. There was no escaping the truth now. "These are the victims," the officer said, pointing to the photographs. "This is the damage you caused, and this is the law coming down on you." You can try to lie, try to say you didn't know what you were doing, but the truth is, in these papers, it's all here. Criminal number one's eyes flicked nervously to the photos and he flinched. He hadn't realized the extent of what they had done. The people they had hurt, the lives they had ruined. He had tried to block it all out, tried to convince himself that they were just trying to survive. But now faced with the truth, it was impossible to deny. The chief watched him closely, sensing his moment of weakness. "You thought you could get away with it," he said, his voice firm. "But you were wrong. Every crime has its consequences, and now it's time for you to face them." Criminal number two shifted in his seat, trying to hold his ground, but his gaze kept darting to the photos. The weight of the evidence too much to bear. "We didn't know it would go this far," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "We never wanted anyone to get hurt." The chief leaned in, his voice hard. "But you still made the choice. You still hurt people. You didn't care about the consequences when you were running. Now you're going to pay for it." The room fell silent once again. The criminals sat in their chairs, defeated. There was no more fight left in them, no more excuses to offer. The truth was undeniable, and they had no choice but to face the music. For what felt like an eternity, the officers stood there watching them. The chief finally broke the silence. "You'll be booked and processed. The trial will come soon enough. You can try to argue your case in court, but the evidence speaks for itself." Criminal number one and number two exchanged a glance, both of them fully aware of what was coming next. They had no idea how it would all unfold, but one thing was certain: they were no longer in control. The chief nodded to the officers, and they moved to escort the criminals out of the room. The door opened, and the criminals were led away. Their hands still cuffed, their heads hung low in defeat. As the door closed behind them, the silence in the interrogation room returned, this time even heavier than before. The truth had been revealed, and there was no going back. Outside, the night carried on as usual. The city, oblivious to the events unfolding inside the station, continued on. But for the criminals, their world had just been shattered. The consequences of their actions had caught up with them, and now there was nowhere left to hide. The trial awaited them, and their fate was sealed. As the two criminals were led out of the room, the reality of their situation fully sank in. Their once confident attitudes had been replaced with the quiet resignation of men who knew their fate was sealed. The officers guided them down the narrow hallway, the weight of every step adding to the heavy silence. Outside, the world continued as if nothing had changed, but for them, everything had. The police chief watched them go, his eyes cold but satisfied. The chase had ended, justice had been served, and the long hours of hard work had finally paid off. He turned back to the interrogation room, making sure everything was in order. The case was closed, but the work wasn't over. There would still be a trial, but that was a battle for another day. For now, the truth had come to light, and the criminals would face the consequences of their actions. It was a reminder that no one, no matter how far they ran, could escape the law forever. As the camera slowly zoomed out from the police station, the quiet hum of the city outside filled the background. The case was closed, but the echoes of what had happened lingered in the air. The justice system had worked as it should, bringing closure to a dark chapter. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more intense stories like this, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Your support means the world to us, and we appreciate each one of you who's along for the ride. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more gripping stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. See you in the next video.